Ready graphics? Ready theme? Cue back.
Good evening. For your information tonight.
Hi, I'm Jessie Mullins.
And I'm Lauren Milberger.
And this is FYI.
The Murphy Brown Podcast. We did it. We're here.
Hi.
Hi, Jessie.
And we have faces.
We do have faces, yes. Unless you're listening to this on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. So they're confused right now.
Yes.
But this is a live Facebook stream of our first episode, which is a podcast, which is audio, and there is a visual element.
But just this one time.
One time only, yes.
It's kind of like an Easter egg, so that when you hear the voices, you feel like you know what the faces are.
Exactly. And then we can go back into the shadows where we belong.
Where we absolutely belong, because I'm too showered and put together for this. I'm not in sweatpants. I don't understand what's happening.
And then we can go into our little hovel and just watch episodes of Murphy Brown.
Which is what I do on the daily.
Yes, and we can now say it's research.
It's absolutely. It's like when you find out that for a job you can go buy some clothes for it, and you're like, that's a write-off.
Absolutely. And then you just, get things that you actually really don't need.
Yeah.
This is definitely a write-off.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. My computer is a write-off.
I need that maxi dress for business.
Absolutely. I'm not going to wear it to the club.
Duh club.
Because that's what I do. Because as a child who grew up watching Murphy Brown, I went to the club.
Duh club.
The club.
That's what they say, right?
I don't know. I'm not cool.
I live with cats.
She does. She does live with cats.
It is a special club.
So welcome. Now, you may have figured out already that this episode is going to be a little bit different formatted than our normal episodes.
Yes, normally we're going to be going episode by episode, breaking it down, talking about relevant tidbits and factoids. We're going to have a little theme with the target board behind her. What is the word I'm thinking of right now?
Dartboard.
The dartboard. Hi. It looks like a target. I get that.
Well, sometimes she put people on it
Sometimes
that were
she did.
targets. It's a Freudian slip, Jessie.
It's exactly. I'm just so much smarter than even I realize
You
in
are.
this moment.
Yeah.
So we'll be going episode by episode, talking about, giving you the summary of what actually happened in case you're not following along watching, or you are and you just want to be reminded about which one we're talking about.
Or we're also going to be talking about relevance to today.
Absolutely.
Maybe some references that you don't remember or maybe you don't get. And really just sort of, dissecting and breaking it down and then talking about what we love about it and just talking about the episodes in general. And we're
behind
excited.
the scenes goodies.
Oh my God, so much behind the scenes.
We have so much. There's an entire book.
Yes, for those of you who are at the visual portion of this evening, let's see, am I showing this correctly?
It's totally in front
It's okay.
of us.
This is a book called, let's see, what's the name of it? Anatomy of a Sitcom, Murphy Brown, an inside look at classic in the making. Oh, I can't speak. By Robert S. Alley and Irby B. Brown. And I had this book since I was probably like 11 or 12. My mother brought it back from Caldor.
Oh.
Do we remember Caldor?
I'm sorry, my brain goes to Star Trek, so I'm assuming that's a planet somewhere.
No, Caldor was not a planet, but to me it was a planet where I could get a Murphy Brown book and perhaps some amazing perfume by Debbie Gibson.
Oh, Debbie.
She would not buy, my mom would not buy that. She bought the book. My mom would not buy the perfume. I cried.
Sounds like my mother.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things from the 80s and the 90s, from our childhood, particularly. So this is sort of an origins episode. This is going to be us talking about what we're going to be doing in the future, why we're doing this podcast, and sort of our origin Murphy Brown stories.
Personal stories to add a personal touch.
Yeah, we hope maybe you, connect to that and see why we are the perfect hosts for this.
Yes, our enthusiasm will convince you regardless.
Yeah, hopefully we won't scare you.
That's fine. Join us. Be scary. It's more fun over here. We have cookies.
Do we? Where?
In my purse. Shh.
Okay, sorry.
We'll eat them later.
You have to share with everybody now.
Fine.
So, Jessie, would you like to start off and tell your personal story about why you love Murphy Brown?
Oh, sure. And so I grew up in northwestern Minnesota. I was raised in a unique household for my age. I was raised by baby boomers with 2 Gen X children. And then I came along significantly later. However, I was raised in a Gen X household. So I watched what my mother watched. And that was Murder, She Wrote. That was Murphy Brown. With my dad, I watched original Doctor Who and Star Trek and all these things. So I was raised in a very matriarchal setting where we talked about the issues that were relevant to my family, which was a little older than I was. So I remember being far too young and having really strong opinions about the politics of my nation and about what women should be doing, I assumed that it was normal to see women on my screen in powerful executive positions, leading the world, being the woman that people are afraid of when Murphy walks into a room. I assumed that's what you did. So it definitely informed what happened later. It's probably the reason I was so obsessed with Xena Warrior Princess. I was like, women rock, and they do things. And I didn't think it was weird for a woman to, spoiler, have a child later out of wedlock. These were conversations that happened around me. And to this day, it's usually a reference point.
That's so awesome. So my story is that I was that kid who used to watch everything. Like, I would joke that if I didn't watch it, it was probably because it was on against something else. Even when I eventually got, the picture within a picture VCR recorder, that's still only two things that you can watch. You have to watch one thing and record the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was only two. Of course, if Murphy Brown was on, that could not happen because I would record every episode.
And watch it as well.
Exactly. So I can't record one thing and watch something else. So that if it was on Mondays against Murphy Brown, then I probably didn't also watch it.
Yes, all Murphys.
Yeah, because this was before streaming.
Yeah,
This was before carrying around things on your phone.
I don't understand how DVR works. I never will.
It's a complicated thing, Jesse.
Yeah.
But I'll explain it to you one day.
Thank you.
So I remember coming across Murphy Brown, I would say, in, the middle of season 2. I feel like between 11 and 12, I sort of became watching adult shows, whereas before, I would never have got 30-something. I was watching Blossom.
Blossom.
Yeah, Blossom. And Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Alf and things like that. And then there was some sort of shift. And I don't know if it was watching Murphy Brown that maybe took me up a notch. I also was heavily bullied. I'm dyslexic. I didn't have any real peer group. And so I was able to, I think, create on my own, where you had the influence of your mother. And my mother didn't watch my shows with me, per se. I mean, if you ask her, she'd go, oh yeah, I love Murphy Brown. But it was always just me sort of solitary in front of the television because it was sort of a refuge for me outside of school. And I just became obsessed. It was, as I said to someone the other day, it was bad. And I meant I had it bad. And she said to me, I told Jessie this story, oh, that sounds really good.
It is really good. I'm a massive fandom person.
Yeah.
There's strength in the confidence of yeah, I know everything about this.
But I think I meant it more I had it bad.
But it's charming.
Thank you. So here's how bad I had it. Jessie loves this story. So what I did was I started cutting out pictures from TV Guide, and I didn't want to put them on my wall because I didn't want to mess them up. So I had gotten one of those sort of, old style photo albums with a plastic cover and the sticky paper, and I started putting them in there. And the next thing you know, I had a scrapbook, which over 10 years became several different Murphy Brown scrapbooks.
Yes, they did.
I cut out little letters, things, articles. I made it artistic because I also did collage art.
If you're gonna scrapbook,
You got a
scrapbook.
I seriously
Capital
scrapbook.
S it.
Yeah, no, it's. And then this book that I talked about, my mother brought home, and I really learned sort of the behind the scenes. I learned about Diane English, who was the showrunner, and how many people believe that she really was, sort of Murphy Brown in a sense, and ran that whole show and her sensibility, and learned how sitcoms worked. And I think before that, I definitely wanted to be an actor or be in show business, but this was oh, I want to work behind the scenes in sitcoms, or I want to do this, and becoming obsessed with how the table read works and how the different days are. I bought first draft scripts so I could see
I was obsessed.
all the cut lines and the character stuff. I used to actually take a little mini cassette and I would record the audio of my favorite episodes. And if I couldn't sleep at night or I went on vacation, I would listen to them.
You are the world's most beautiful monster.
Thank you. And there's one more. I took my parents' camcorder, put it on some books, because we were going on vacation, and I had to watch Murphy Brown on vacation, recorded the video of it, listened to it on my little cassette. It was off by a little
You're
bit.
early AV. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I was creating an iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would listen on vacation. So there are certain episodes that I used to be able to actually verbatim do in my head because of that. Which, when you're heavily bullied and, you're sort of in it and you want to kind of take yourself out because it's just nonstop. I'd walk the halls and people would really be very mean to me. This sounds so sad, but I'm fine now, guys. I would repeat the episode sort of in my head. Now, I feel like it's been so long, I watched a couple and I don't think I could do the whole thing in my head now.
I'm very disappointed in you.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But there were certain episodes, particularly the Jerry Gold episodes.
Oh, Jerry.
Jerry. We'll talk about Jay later.
Yeah.
But I was repeating it along with it, like I was, at a cult movie.
That's part of it. It's the community of the fandom and all the different ways that you connect to the community, whether you had someone to watch it with you or it created a world that you felt safe in. That's what fandom does. And I think it's a spectrum, there are different levels of it, and everything is valid. I think what's important for our audience to know is why it's important to you. Like, and it may have a sadder origin, but people can also connect to that. And that's why I appreciate you sharing it.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's nice to kind of, share it with all of you guys.
Hey.
Yeah.
So we also want to talk about why we still talk about this show. I mean,
yes.
We met years ago. I don't even know how many, but let's not worry about that. But one of the first things we ever talked about was Murphy Brown and this excitement we had that we both
Which was rare to me to find someone, particularly around my age, who did, because it really was meant for adults.
Oh, yeah. But I was 15 going on 40 most of my life.
As was I.
And I think that started at about age 6. So, but I just remember being like, oh, this person gets this. And it's amazing because the more we talk about it, the more I run into people. I was talking to somebody on the train the other day, and I mentioned a Murphy Brown podcast, and they were so excited. It was like this gem from their past. They weren't even realizing they need it.
Yeah, and I think also because it's not streaming, it's not on DVD past season 1, so it becomes a sort of like, oh my goodness,
Where is it?
Yeah, because everyone is so used to being able to just go on their computer, log in, and find it. And unfortunately, because every episode started with music and sometimes within the episode she is even singing, it's just been very hard for it to be out past season 1.
Absolutely.
Which is sad.
And one of the reasons why I think it's important for us to talk about this show and to delve into it is that it's still so incredibly relevant.
Very much so.
The topics that are happening, I mean, we've talked about this with shows like West Wing and so on. These are things that are still around, and especially from the points of feminism and women in the workplace. For me, that's incredibly important. It's a dialogue that needs to continue, and having representation out there as examples, I find incredibly important. Speaking of that, so we wanted to talk a little bit about what we mean by feminism in regards to today, and Murphy kind of leading that discussion. For those who don't know, we're currently in what we call third wave feminism.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go too into this. I'm not talking from a degree of women's studies.
Yes, and everything I think today is going to be sort of lightly dusted, so to speak.
Dusted.
We are going to save a lot of things as we go along to talk about in each individual episode.
Exactly. For reference, first wave feminism, think your 1800s to early 1900s suffragettes. Women were trying to talk about their issues, but before they could do that, they needed equality. And at that time, it was about property rights and the right to vote, have a say in the political agenda. Second wave feminism, you're looking at post-World War II, 60s to 80s. This now we start looking at women in the workplace, the family structure, the Equal Rights Amendment, reproductive rights, sexuality, and so on. Third wave feminism, which is what really ties into the Murphy Brown era, is a little bit more ambiguous. We're talking about a lot of the issues are kind of reactive to what they were the perceived failures of second wave feminism. And a lot of times people refer to second wave feminism as the middle class white woman's feminism.
I've heard that, yeah.
And what came out of that was the concept of intersectionality, about the idea that any woman is broken down by so many different disciplines of their own personal diversity that it colors what feminism means to them and what's important to them. And I think that's something that's important within Murphy Brown, because within this current feminism that was starting about this time, you're looking at her love of Motown and why that's so important to her as at this point, kind of upper class white woman. Why is Motown music so important and what that could represent? So that's something we're going to talk about as we go when we talk about the different music. And we want to talk about how the different overlapping identities of women today are still very relevant and how we need to address them one at a time and continue this dialogue. For reference, everyone, the dictionary definition of feminism is the theory of the political, economic, and social equality of the sexes. Little food for thought.
Yeah, and something I thought was also really interesting, being children back then, I think there's certain things we just didn't realize how far back, So Murphy Brown premiered on November 14th, 1988. My dad's birthday, funny enough.
Oh, happy birthday.
And only 14 years before was the first time a woman could get her own credit card without a man. Not that long ago.
Modern life.
I mean, at the time, when you think, like, what was I doing 14 years ago? Things feels like yesterday.
I just can't believe I don't know how many goats I'm worth.
That's complex.
Yeah.
I think that we should maybe Google that.
Yeah, I definitely. I can probably find a ratio somewhere.
I'm thinking 3.5.
Oh, thank you. Is that good?
Out of 5?
Is it out of 5 goats?
I don't know.
There's probably an app. We can find it.
We'll figure it out, yeah.
We'll let you know.
Yeah. And then also, 1967 was the first time that a woman ran the Boston Marathon, although not officially. Officially, it was 1972, so 16 years before Murphy Brown. So, 14, 16 years, that's like a drop in the pan.
Isn't that the runner who just reran this year?
Yes, she did.
Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Now, what's sort of also exciting about, we're doing this live stream with Antenna TV is that Murphy Brown is going to be on Antenna TV very soon. Yes. So, yes, it's not streaming and it's not necessarily on DVD, but now you have a place to actually see it.
I'm so excited.
So excited.
We finally have an outlet. This is a great opportunity for people to remember it, to get to see it past season 1, which is the only way you could see it up until
Some
this
people
point.
haven't.
Exactly. And we have such a large demographic that this could pertain to now. And thankfully Antenna TV is letting us have access to the show again. And hopefully it'll remind the world how much we need Murphy.
Well, I hope also maybe some new people will, discover it. I have a really good friend of mine who's too young to have known the show, and I showed her a couple episodes, and she absolutely loved it.
Oh my gosh.
She related to Frank.
Oh,
and so jokingly I started calling...
That's amazing.
I know, I love that she loved Frank. And she's like, he's my favorite.
I love that it wasn't, I'm going to pick a female character that is me, I'm going to pick a character that is me.
But what I love is that, so I started calling her Frank as a joke, and now she calls me Murph.
Stop.
Because we're like besties. Or she's like my sister. It's the best. She's like my little sister. And so we have a little text thing where she's like, hey Frank. I'm like, hey Murph.
Oh. Are you the other? Don't worry about it.
I missed that. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. But I'm sorry, I'm personally fascinated by the fact that she relates to the male character. I think that's brilliant. It's a different time. We used to always, we even talk about this at Comic-Con about cosplay. A number of people are like, well, I only have so many options because of which gender.
Oh, really? I feel like at Comic-Con I see so many people switch gender.
We're around open-minded people. But the idea that, it's becoming more and more plausible to just look at the character rather than what gender they've been assigned.
That's great. Yeah.
So should we talk a little bit about how this came to be?
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about Diane English.
Who?
She created the show, Jessie.
Oh, I guess I've heard that name.
Diane Marie English, to
we
be
may have
specific,
talked about her a couple times.
A couple of times. I had her picture on my wall.
Of course you did.
Well, many people may not realize that she did a Hanes ad.
Oh, yeah.
So I had the Hanes ad on my wall. I also, from this book, photocopied the entire writing staff and had the writing staff on my wall like it was the New York Yankees. I know.
I love you.
I know. Okay. So Diane Marie English was born May 15th, 1948. She moved to New York to be a playwright. She grew up in Buffalo, New York. She eventually got a job at the local PBS here, Channel 13. Wrote a TV column for Vogue. She co-wrote The Life of Heaven in 1980, which is based on the 1971 science fiction novel. Jessie, who is Star Trek canon, has a lot of experience in that area. I sure am. Eventually, she and her husband, Joel Tchaikovsky, who became her producing partner, moved to LA. Diane wrote some TV movies, tried to do some features, but the two of them felt like it just took too long. I have a really good friend of mine who's the most successful screenwriter that I know, and nothing he has written has been produced yet. because it's just development hell.
Yeah.
It keeps going. So they decided to do television. Diane's first show was Foley Square in 1985 with Margaret Cullen.
Nice.
It was one of those shows that was really great reviews, but maybe didn't have the ratings, which I think happens a lot with a lot of successful
Yep, a lot of it.
writers. It was about, I actually love this. I can't find it. So if it's on YouTube or someone can find it for me, I would love to see it.
Please tell us.
Maybe it's at the Paley Center. But Wiki said that she was, not plucky. What was the word that really got me? I didn't write it down. Perky. And I was like, I don't know if that works with the Diane character, but that's what it said. She was an assistant attorney, hence, Foley Square, had, single woman, very, I think, sort of, beginnings of, what eventually Diane would write. Then she had a contract with Warner Brothers. And they put her on this pilot. I mean, the pilot had been done already, but they weren't very happy with it. So she wasn't the executive producer, she was the producer. And that was My Sister Sam with Pam Dauber and Rebecca Schaefer. And that was 1986 to 1988. I know you have a personal sort of connection to My Sister Sam.
I love My Sister Sam, specifically because I was raised in a household with a pretty significant age gap between my elder sisters and I. Mm-hmm. And it was... and to this day, honestly, one of the only representations I've seen of that kind of relationship. And it was so special to me to see
Well,
this.
tell people a little bit about what the basic plot of My Sister Sam was.
Oh, gosh, I'm going to try and remember it. I
you
really
just-
only remember the...
I mean, you just sort of
Yeah.
highlighted on it, but
Yeah,
just to
I
give
mean-
people context.
Sure, so it's a sibling relationship, and you have are they within the teens separated from each other?
Yeah, she's in high school, I believe.
Yeah, so that's what happened when I was born. My sisters were teenagers, and it's an interpersonal dynamic
And
that
two
is
women,
examined. Yeah, about a female relationship that is neither maternal nor fully sibling, and what happens in that process. It's unique and featured featured anywhere.
Yeah. No, did you watch it on USA?
Oh, I'm sure I did.
Yeah, because I remember watching it actually originally. I was very, very young.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually very traumatized when Rebecca Schaefer passed away, which we'll talk about in the future because we don't want to sort of go in that. But it
I must have seen it in reruns then.
was on USA. It was
Probably a rerun on USA.
Sorry, I remember these little details that like it was only
It's a
on
beautiful,
USA.
beautiful thing.
Thank you. And I have not seen it in years though.
No.
No, I
Should have
wasn't
a
as
movie
into
night.
it as I was into Murphy Brown. So as I mentioned, My Sister Sam ended in 1988, but by 1987, Diane had actually sold the idea for Murphy Brown. What's interesting is that very, very early on, she had this idea of maybe like a not as famous reporter, someone who was sort of scrambling for leads and didn't have the deep throats and things like that. But eventually, this sort of became this idea of what happens when you have reached all your goals, when you have to live life in the public eye, which is something we'll talk about more in the future as well, which is very relevant today and is brought up in the pilot. Does everyone have the right to know everything about
Exactly.
it? And we're going to more of that in our second episode. But before I go into a little bit about the origins of the show, you're going to talk about Candice Bergen.
Candice, our hero. So Candice Bergen, you may have heard of her, is
Maybe.
maybe it plays Murphy. She is model, actor, activist. My favorite thing about her right now is that her Instagram is Bergen Bags. Sorry if my accent comes out. Bags. Bergen Bags. Where it's the tagline is from one old bag to another.
Oh, she actually changed it because someone insulted her on Instagram, and she decided to use it as her tagline.
I love it. She's the best. But
I love that you did that.
she loves painting and creating art in her spare time, and she started with her daughter's Louis Vuitton bag.
Yeah.
And she painted a painting on the bag, and it's so beautiful. And her daughter, who works for a fashion
Vogue.
it is Vogue, and loved it. And now she does commissions where she paints on people's bags,
and
it's
all
the
the
most
money
wonderful
goes
thing.
to charity.
It's the most
It
wonderful
doesn't
thing.
even go through her. Like, you donate the money to a charity, and then she paints your bag. It's such a great thing.
It's probably my birthday present to myself this year. So, Candice Bergen is the child of celebrities. She grew up in the public eye. It was very similar to a lot of scenarios that we see now, where everyone knew who she was, probably before she even knew who she was at this point. If you hear the term ventriloquist dummy, you probably are imagining her father's puppet. They were famous I don't want to misquote anything about her childhood, but I will say go look at articles that and interviews that she has done about her childhood with her father and with this dummy in particular, because it was very treasured and had its own room. And it's quite fascinating, and she has some very eloquent things to say about her childhood.
Her books as well. She has 2 biographies. Really great.
It's in the biography. I think that's where I first read it. So she grew up in the shadow of a puppet. She started out as a model and is, stunning. But she began acting in the late 60s. She's also an accomplished photojournalist.
Yeah.
Because she can do it all.
Apparently.
She was the first woman to host Saturday Night Live. She was the first to do a second show, and she's also the first woman in the Five Timers Club.
Yes, she is.
Because she's amazing. She guest starred on The Muppet Show in one of the sweetest episodes. You can actually find that on DVD. She was in several skits. And she was Oscar nominated in 1979 for Starting Over.
Yes, even though half the internet says it was for Gandhi.
Yeah, I don't know what the internet... Bless.
We were like,
you're wrong.
Wait, what? That's not right.
I was like, I was just checking my date to see if I had it right, but apparently nobody knows what they're talking about. Anyway, so she is well known at this point when this show is in fruition. And she is known as being stunning, but also biting. She's known for some pretty sassy moments of opinion, which we still know to this day. She's wearing some amazing sweaters right now on press interviews. And so when this project was coming along, she had a pretty interesting, I guess I would say, origin story into the role.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So the Murphy Brown was actually originally written for Jo Beth Williams. It was not written for Candace and mine, which I think shocks a lot of people. Mm-hmm. In fact, the network was not very happy or jazzed about her being in the role. Which, again, you go, I cannot believe that was a thing. So Candace took sort of her time to read the script. She really wasn't a fan of sitcoms at the time. Mm-hmm. She was a movie star, and it was very... this was a time... I mean, nowadays, a movie star doing television is not a big deal. In fact,
no, but then
it was...
You stayed in your lane.
Exactly. It was a very big deal. I mean, I think Michael J. Fox had sort of slowly started to kind of do that and was breaking out with Back to the Future and things like that, but it still wasn't known. But Candace wanted to schedule, because she had a very young daughter, that would work to be able to be home for, her family. But she still took her time. So she read the script very late and loved it so much and got scared that maybe it was taken. And I love this story that I don't know if it's going to be relevant to everyone today, but she said she used a phone on a plane and she felt kind of like an idiot. Like, why am I doing this? Yeah. Which now it's like everybody has a phone. And it had not been taken, obviously because Jo Beth Williams had turned it down, and they were looking at a lot of people. So Diane and Joel flew out to New York, where Candace lived, to talk to her and see if it was something she might be interested in doing and if they liked each other. And what I love about this story is that apparently when Diane and Candace met, they were wearing... Now, apparently they said the same outfit. I want to say probably pretty much like the same outfit? That's crazy. But they were wearing the same outfit, the same lipstick, and the same perfume.
Which, everyone, is something that we're going to talk about in a future episode.
Perfume?
No, same outfit.
Oh, yes.
It's one of my favorite little Easter eggs.
Little spoiler
We still don't know if it's intentional.
That's true, we
Stay
don't.
Stay tuned.
What are they talking about? So they thought, this is a slam dunk. We have this beautiful movie star who wants to do our TV show. And
you're welcome.
Yes. And they were like, pass. So Candace had to read, which is unheard of for a movie star back then. Even today.
Back then it was... Now people, like we said, transition a lot between. But back then, there was this stigma that if you went from movies to TV, you were taking a step down.
Exactly.
A very you're welcome kind of thing. And if you had the gall to want to go from TV to movies, you were really being ambitious.
Yeah. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. So Candace agreed to read. Mm-hmm. She felt, this is something that Candace has said and everyone has said, so I'm not speaking out of turn, that she was uncomfortable, nervous, I should say is a better word, and did not do well. And everyone in the room could tell. So they all walked out, and this is, I believe, Candace and Diane and Barnett Kellman, who we'll talk about more in future episodes, who really directed most of the beginning of the series, and the pilot. Wonderful, had been a theater director, had worked on My Sister Sam. And Diane, in Murphy style, just turned on her heels, went back in the room, closed the door, and demanded pretty much that Candace have the role. And, many people don't know what happened in that room.
Diane English, ladies and gentlemen.
I could make a Hamilton reference right now, but I won't.
What happened? I will do it.
Came out, and the executive went up to Candace and said, "Congratulations, Murphy." And she had the role.
Sexy.
Yeah. So that we'll talk more about in future episodes about a little bit more of the development of the show.
Yeah, we'll pepper it in.
We'll pepper
as
it
we
in.
go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically our origin story here. It's our little backstory. It's why we're passionate. It's how it came to be, and why we're so excited to talk about this. As we go, a lot of the other actors that you love from the series, Faith Ford, for example, we will be talking about as they're prominently featured in episodes coming up. A lot of them have great showcase moments, and so we'll get to delve into why we love them.
And one of my favorite casting moments is Grant Shaw, how he got cast.
Yes.
So we'll talk about when we have a Miles-centric episode. That way we're not just two talking heads. Even though, hi, talking head
talking at you.
And then each episode has like a little bit of everything.
And I'm excited to talk about how things have changed for me since I watched it.
Yeah, same
as a child.
here. Yeah,
we were saying we started rewatching with this in mind as opposed to just watching for fun, and because we're researching and we're professional. And I was shocked by my opinions on certain characters and how they had changed.
Same thing. Well, I think also when you're at a different stage in your life as a woman, and so watching something, maybe not having experienced that life,
Those scenarios,
exactly,
what the current societal climate is like.
Yeah.
I have a very different opinion.
I do.
Especially on an episode coming up soon.
Yeah. Wow, we're being so cryptic.
We're so cryptic.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, everyone.
I would love to just really quickly, since we have some time, read a little bit of this quote from Diane, which I think is going to set us off for a lot of, episodes about what is very relevant about, fame today, which I think sets in is, because here's something else in the research I find was interesting, was this idea, will people be able to root for a character who's beautiful and rich and famous? That was a question. And today, that's kind of all we got.
Yep.
So it started out as a series about a woman who faces a certain amount of milestones in her life, struggling to recover from alcoholism, facing 40, and the fact that nothing she does is private, all big and all very public. In a way, you have to write what you know. I and Murphy had a lot in common. That's the point where you work and work and work, and you have a goal, and you reach it, and then you've got to look beyond that and say, what's next? That's what we did this decade, but I've got 40 more years in me. What am I going to do next? And then I love this is, how do I find the time to stop and just go to the beach? Which,
Good question.
Yeah, but that connects to the finale.
Yep, sure does.
Whereas this is from 1989, also something that didn't resonate with me when I was 12, but did now, was Diane said there's a fine line between being independent and being lonely.
Absolutely. And that's something that's examined
a lot in the show.
Quite often in the show.
And so I think it's going to have a different, so I'm excited.
I'm excited to go on this journey with you, Lauren.
I'm excited to go on this journey with you as well.
Yeah. Do we, let's see. So we have a couple things that we'd like to
talk about.
Send you off with. So we like to start every episode enjoying the music of the show. Now we're not going to play them for you because the rights are a little costly. But we have created a Spotify playlist.
We have. I've called it the Murphy Brown Empowerment Playlist.
Which includes all of the songs from all the episodes, and we will have in the show notes for you the songs of the episodes that we are talking about that day. And we like to rock out to them before we start recording. We recommend that you have a dance party with us,
please.
as well. Or just enjoy because the music is so good.
And I've added some songs that are inspired by the show as well, that aren't necessarily in the show. And it's just sort of a nice thing to do, whether before you listen to our episode, just rock it on the subway or in your car.
I listen to it a lot now.
Thank you.
There's a lot of Aretha Franklin. I'm super happy.
Of course, it's tons of Aretha Franklin.
It's so good.
Tons of Aretha Franklin. So it's Motown and Atlantic. We have to be specific about that.
Absolutely.
Because some people think that Aretha Franklin is Motown, and it's not. It's Atlantic.
Yep. So also, social media.
Well, first of all, tell them where they can find the Spotify. It's under Murphy Brown Podcast, just so you know.
Oh, yes. So isn't it Murphy Brown Pod?
It's Murphy Brown Podcast, just so people can find us on Spotify. Yeah.
Because everything else is Murphy Brown Pod.
It is, but then Spotify is a searchable thing that I want people to be able to find us on and know what we are. So it's a little bit different.
Well,
Sorry.
you made it, so you
Sorry,
go ahead.
Jesse.
No, you go ahead.
But yes, so the Spotify is we are Murphy Brown Podcast. But everywhere else on social media, we are Murphy Brown Pod.
Yes. That's on Instagram, on the Twitter, on the Facebook. Murphy Brown Pod, standing for podcast.
And you can follow us. You can follow Antenna TV. You can like.
Hopefully you're following Antenna TV right now if you're watching this.
I would assume they
I
are.
would hope
But
so.
they have a Twitter as
If
well.
not, click it.
As you should. Because we want to be able to show how popular Murphy Brown is.
Exactly.
You should also subscribe wherever you're listening to this as a podcast, whether it's iTunes or SoundCloud,
Stitcher,
Pocket Cast.
Pocket Cast.
Pretty much you can listen to podcasts in numerous ways.
Yes.
Numerous ways?
Numerous ways. New term. Numerous ways.
I'm
Subscribe
Shakespeare.
there.
And then we'll be able to get this on your phone or wherever you listen.
You don't have
as
to
soon as we drop
remember
it.
that, like, hey, it's a Monday. Isn't there something I was supposed to look
What
for?
am I supposed to do?
What was I supposed to do on Monday?
Oh,
And look,
Murphy Brown.
a new episode of FYI sitting right there for you. Don't even have to worry about it. If you just subscribe, it's already there, waiting like a little hug for your ear holes.
I like that.
Thank you.
For your information tonight. So please do that. We would love that. We're also going to be setting up a phone number with a voicemail because we want to hear from you what you think of Murphy Brown. How
Community.
How did it affect you when you watched it? What does it mean to you either from your childhood or from your adulthood? Briefly want to hear your stories and we'll probably play them on the air. So that phone number is 646-450-6902.
That's 646-450-6902.
And we're really looking forward to hearing from you.
We're excited. Our
Yeah.
next episode is Season 1, Episode 1,
Respect.
Respect.
Originally called Don't Ask. A little trivia there for you.
Shockingly enough, one of the songs featured for your dance party is Respect by Aretha Franklin.
And Natural Woman, which is within the episode by Aretha Franklin, written by one of my heroes, Carole King.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and tell them about our website that you created, the amazing website.
Oh, well, it's www.murphybrownpod.com.
That's easy.
I know, right? Go check it out. There are pictures of us so you can remember which one we are.
Exactly.
For when we're not people.
We're not people? No one told me I wasn't a person,
I'm definitely
Jesse.
a sea otter.
Now you tell me.
Are you surprised?
I don't want to do a show with a sea otter.
Of course you do. We hold hands.
But it's kind of clammy and wet.
No, they're not.
Let's see. Oh, they're not.
See? You're welcome.
For those of you who are listening, I am touching Jesse's hand right now.
We need lunch, probably.
Probably, yes. Although we just completely ruined the illusion because this is going live at night. We need dinner.
I just need food, guys. I don't know what day it is. But anyway,
Please leave us a voicemail, follow us on social media, let us know in the little, underneath this video what you think. Every month, this is going to be on the iTunes and so forth Tuesday, just because we're live streaming this today on Monday. But after that, it'll be every other Monday. And then eventually we're going to go to every week, probably closer to when Antenna TV will be showing Murphy Brown, which they will be announcing soon, hopefully.
so by that point, everyone should be caught up.
Yeah, so follow, join us.
Rate it, subscribe.
I'm so excited to be going on this journey with you, Jesse.
Likewise. And all of you.
Yeah.
Call us. So we'll see you soon.
Yeah. For another edition of FYI.
The Murphy Brown Podcast.